Hey, welcome back to more D&D. My name's Brandon Moore, and if you're like me, then you probably have a little one or two running around that might be old enough to play D&D, but let's be honest, that character sheet is overwhelming for anybody. Plus, you've got the math aspect of it, where you have to add or subtract to your dice rolls, or keep track of your health.
No thank you, Mick.
And your 4, 5, maybe even 6-year-old either might not be able to do that, or might not be efficient enough at it to keep the game going and keep it fun for them. Well, stick around because today I'm going to be going over this giant D&D Kids character sheet that I've made that's going to make your life so much easier. It's got 2 trackers on it, one of them for health and one of them for the dice rolls specifically, that's going to visually let them be able to see the point at which they're trying to reach, as well as see what they're adding or subtracting to their dice rolls. Additionally, I've taken all of those skills in D&D and minimized it down to just the 6, what I see to be the most important ones, and the ones that I think your kids are probably going to use the most, as well as keeping the 6 main stats, so that way there's a lot less for them to keep track of and to worry about, and to just be able to focus on the primary ones and understand how the game works. Additionally, for those of you that are going to be letting your kids use weapons in the game,
oh heavens, oh my stars, I must clutch my pearls.
I've added some weapon slots at the top that work with this printable template I've made with pre-made weapons, as well as some blanks that you can go and edit yourself to add weapons that you'd like to, so that way whatever weapon your kid will be using, they can put that on their character sheet and they can visually see what it is, as well as the dice that they'll be rolling for damage if they manage to hit. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stick around because I'm going to be going over everything you need to know on how to use that character sheet, and then I'm going to tell you exactly where you can go right now to download it for free and get playing Dungeons & Dragons with your kid today. Oh, also, I'm going to be hiding one of these sticky notes somewhere in my dungeon here with a secret code on it that, if you manage to find it, you can take over to the More D&D Discord and type in for some free Satchemon gold. Okay, so before we get into exactly how the character sheet works, I do want to go over how I printed it. That way you can get an idea of maybe what you want to do when you're able to get your hands on the download. So the first one I have here is the regular sheet of paper with the stats pre-filled in the template. Now, keep in mind, these are printed on an 11x7 sheet of paper, which I do manage to have a printer that can do so, but it's pretty cheap to get this done at Staples, which I'm actually going to go over in a minute. So here I have the pre-printed out. The nice part about this is that it looks nice. The problem is you can't really change it over time because it's already printed on here.
Okay, I'm listening.
That is where the blank template comes in handy because you can fill it in with a standard pencil like you do any other character sheet.
Interesting.
So you just print the template out and you fill it out as you go.
But there has to be a better solution.
But we get back to our staples talking about this. You can see a little bit of a shine there. This was printed at Staples. Where I'm at, it cost me about $4.30 to do so, and I had it laminated at the same time.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
And this will be usable forever. They can write on it with dry erase or wet erase markers and be able to wipe it away when they need to pretty quickly. And it is so thick and sturdy, and it's not going to get messed up easily over time. So highly recommend doing this if you can. It was pretty cheap, and if you have multiple little ones, you can do what I did and have them print out quite a few of them. So that's the 3 print options that I recommend. Let me know if you come up with something else, but then there's a couple other things to keep in mind here too. As I mentioned in the intro, I have these little cards here that are the weapon cards that can be placed on top of the sheet, and they fit perfectly in the weapon slots. This I have the templates for. I would recommend printing these out and actually laminating these too, so that way over time you can continue to reuse them and give them to your little ones, spread them around, and you don't have to worry about messing up the paper or getting them bent. And then this isn't necessarily a piece of paper printed, but I did have the 3 little tokens that I have here in my hand 3D printed for the paper itself to mark the health, the armor class target that they're going for, and to keep track of the numbers that they rolled with the dice. You could use anything like a glass bead or some kind of other little marker that you have that would fit on that section, and if you have it laminated, you could also use a literal marker to keep track of that. All right, now that we know how to print the sheet, let's talk about how to use the sheet. And we're gonna start at the very top where you see weapons and attacks. Now keep in mind there are only 4 slots for weapons, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can only have 4 weapons. They could obviously keep the extras off to the side, or maybe you make some kind of rule that they have to change them out every day, kind of like preparing spells. But either way, there are 4 there. They can have as many as they want, but they're all going to look the same. On the very left of the weapon slot, you're going to see where they would put the image, such as a sword or a bow, and that's to help your kid be able to visually recognize what weapon they're using if they can't necessarily read yet. I've also put the word for the weapon down at the bottom for those that can. Then in the top right, you're going to see their attack modifier. What is the bonus that they're adding to the dice when they roll to see if they hit or not? That's going to be the big number, so that way it's easy to see, easy to read. Now in the bottom right, you're going to see 2 things related to damage. Number 1, you're going to see a visual of the dice that they should be rolling, such as for the maul, you're going to see 2 d6s, but it's the actual image of the dice. Then to the right of that is where you're going to see your damage bonus, typically a little bit less than your attack bonus, but it's going to say plus something. And so now that's everything you need to know really for your weapons. Of course, there's other things like properties, maybe like finesse or thrown, but these are things that you should really just kind of talk with your kid as it's happening and let them kind of make things up as they go, because that's what's going to make it so fun for them. Moving to the right, you're going to see a section for your speed. Now, there are 2 rows here, the top of which I've already got filled in for a walking speed, because most creatures have one. The second one I did leave blank, but in the template I left the images for a swimming and a flying speed. That way if their character has one of those 2 speeds, you can put it over there and have that printed with it. Now, I didn't make 3 lines for all 3 to be able to fit because number 1, it wouldn't have really fit well, but number 2, most creatures don't have all 3 of them, and if they do, that's kind of game breaking, so you might want to hold back on that. But it is kids D&D. Let them do what they want. Now, moving over to another one, you're going to see their armor class, the AC, and that's where you're going to see the big shield there. So hopefully that will help them visually start to memorize that AC means armor class. That way one day when they do maybe upgrade to the regular D&D character sheet, it's still a shield there for the armor class, so they'll know exactly where to look. And this one's as simple as just typing in the number for their armor class. Next and finally, in the top row, we have their initiative bonus. Now, I didn't really know how to make this look like speed jumping off the gate right when the battle starts, so that's why I kind of just added that foot there to make it look like speed or agility. And so this one's as simple as also just adding in whatever the bonus is. Now, heading down to the next section, this is where we're going to get to our stats and our skills. Probably the most important part of D&D, but I've also minimized this, like I said before, to make it as easy as possible for your kids to understand and remember. In the top row, you're going to see the 6 main stats. You're going to have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Then in the next one are the 6 skills that I thought are probably going to be used the most and are the most interchangeable for everything they're going to ask to do. So for instance, you have athletics, anything they're going to try to do, whether that be climbing, swinging from something that you might normally use, acrobatics, you can just use athletics to make it make sense and it'll all be good. Then stealth. What kid isn't going to try to hide from something at some point? So stealth was very important. I figured that one just had to be in there. Then you've got animal handling, and this one was a big one because my son, who was my test subject for this, definitely wanted to try to control any animal that he ran into, whether it be a mean one that he was fighting or one that they just came across on a path. So I feel like all kids might be the same, so I used animal handling, but you could always tweak this if you want to down the road and change out what skill you want. Next, we have investigation, and this one can be used, in my opinion, for both anything you would use for investigation or perception in a normal game. It does take a little bit of the wisdom aspect of the game away because that's what perception's big on, but 2 of the skills that I have here are wisdom-based, so you still get that bonus. Speaking of wisdom-based skills, the next one is survival, and that one I figured could take the place of something like a medicine or a nature check, so I kind of combined all them into one being survival. So when your kid's out in the woods and you have them maybe get lost, you can always have that work. Or if they want to ask about what kind of plants they see, or if you describe some kind of tree and they want to go see something about it or ask something about it, you can just use the survival check to make that make sense and it'll all be fine. And finally, I took 2 of the most common charisma-based skills, being persuasion and intimidation, and I put them together. And that's because these usually have the same number anyway, unless of course they decided to be proficient in one of them. But either way, you can just make this make sense with what they're doing. That includes the other charisma-based skills too, such as deception, where you can kind of have it be a persuasive deception or one where they're trying to intimidate them into believing them. So you might have to use your imagination a little bit here, but I wanted to minimize this for them and kind of put a little bit more of the work on your shoulders. Now, the third section is a simple health tracker, and right in the top right is the area to put your max HP. That should hopefully help your kid be able to visually see a number and find that number on the tracker and know that that's as high as they could go. Now, as far as the tracker itself goes, I did try to color code it to give a good idea of a low, a bad health, versus a high or a good health, being green. Now, of course, this is going to be a little bit skewed as they level up because, of course, lower level characters, something like a 10, might be a high HP, whereas something like a 15th level character, 10 is going to be a very low HP and they're probably in trouble. But I tried to give your kid just something to look at visually to understand, hey, let's look at my HP and make sure that this may or may not be a good idea to get in this fight. Now, this tracker here is where we get into our first 3D printed marker that I have, which is a heart-shaped that is hollow so that you can move it and see the number that's on the inside. I do have the 3D models available for all 3 of these tokens with the template itself. So if you happen to have a 3D printer, you can print those and use them yourself. Or if you want to use anything else, like I mentioned before, a glass bead or something else just to keep track of that health, you can do so as well. Now, the final section is what I think is probably the most user-friendly section of this template and the reason I made it in the first place. This is going to help your kid track the dice rolls that they're making and be able to add or subtract things to it and see if they're reaching the target that they're trying to. So at the top, I did try to color code it once more, and I used red for really bad, fading up into green, and then it got into blue and purple to signify this is a really, really good roll. For those kids that can read, I also did add words above to point out when it's a really good roll by saying something like huge roll for a really good one, or uh-oh for a low one. Just underneath of that, you're going to see a gray section that says Target Armor Class Marker here. This is where you use the third object, whether it be a token or a glass bead or whatever that may be, to mark what the armor class is that your child is trying to reach to succeed. Now, this could also just be for a skill check. You could use this to mark what number they have to hit to be able to succeed at what they're doing. This gives them an idea of, hey, when I roll this number, did I make it? Did I not? And it gives them that first idea of meet or beat. As long as you make it to the point at which that token is at, they have succeeded and they are good to go. So from there, they'll roll their dice, they'll move their little token up the colorful numbers, then you have them move it right or left, whatever they need to add or subtract. And if they see that they've passed that marker, they've succeeded and they're good to go. And finally, at the very bottom, you can see that I have a visual of each of the dice so they can see what the maximum number that dice can roll. But other than that, I've left out all of the other convoluted aspects of D&D that you could always add in verbally with your kid or even write things down to help them maybe add some cool traits in or be able to add some fun feats. This was all stuff that I thought wasn't necessarily imperative to get your kid up and running in D&D, but figured you could always work that out with them to make the game even more fun down the road. Now, that's everything I have regarding how to use the sheet. It's very simple. I've kept everything very minimalistic for your kids to be able to hopefully understand and start to comprehend really quickly as they play the game. Now, to download the template, as well as the weapons template that I have and the 3D models that I have for the little markers, you just have to head over to my Patreon. It is completely free. You don't even have to become a free member to download it. I've made it available to the public. You just have to find my Patreon, and you'll see the files right there that you can download and use however you'd like to. Get it printed over at Staples, print it out yourself, and get playing D&D with your kids now. Now, for those of you that are looking to use the commercial outlet, either using Staples or Office Depot or something similar, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how I did it using Staples specifically, so you can see what settings I used and get a good idea of maybe what you would want to do if you do the same thing. Alright, so when you get to staples.com, the first thing you're going to do is go up to this print and copy tab and slide down to the same day services. Now here they're going to give you a whole bunch of options, but the ones that matter to us are the simple print right here, which will allow you to print it on a regular 11x17 sheet of paper and have it ready the same day, or go down to this professional print, which is what I did, and most likely get it the same day, but you might also have to wait till the following day. Now it'll bring you to the 3-step process where you just click Start Project, and it's going to ask you to upload your file. So you click My Computer, and wherever you save that file to, you just go double click it and it'll set it up for you. Now once it loads it, you're going to come down to Continue, and it's going to bring you to the editor. When you get here, the first thing you're going to do is go up and click this 11x17 size, because we want that big sheet of paper for your kids to use. Now, I'm already on landscape here, and I'm not sure if that's because I've printed one of these already and it just saved that setting. Just make sure that you click the landscape setting, that way you're not stuck with this portrait sheet of paper and this small little character sheet in the middle. Then we're going to go down to Next, and here's where we get to pick our paper. You could click standard paper, but I actually went with the premium paper, so we get a nice thick sheet, and I click the high gloss cover for that sheen. Then, once it's ready, we'll hit Next, and we're going to select color ink so we can get that color shading so they can see obviously where the red is and where the greens are. And and we're gonna hit next one more time, and here's where we get to choose our finishing options. So we go up to lamination, and we click that 5 mil. If you don't mind it being delivered, you could go even thicker and click the 10 mil, but personally, I definitely don't mind the 5 mil. It is plenty thick enough for what you want to do. Now it's going to let you know that some finishing options can't be combined, like the other ones, like the folding and such. That's irrelevant. We don't need that. So we'll slide down, we'll click next, and here's where you get to select the number of copies that you want to print, finish off with your delivery method, whether or not you want to pick it up or have it delivered, and then you'll be able to go grab your piece. All right, and there you have it. We've got ourselves a nice and easy to use kids D&D character sheet to hopefully help get that next generation involved in the hobby that we all love. And hopefully it's gonna generate some good times with you guys as well, because that's what the game's all about, is just having fun. Now, sorry about that. So, if you were interested in that Satchmon thing I was talking about over on the More D&D Discord, it's essentially a digital trading card system based entirely around D&D. We've got the monsters of D&D like Tiamat and the Tarrasque, along with magic items and soon-to-be locations that you can collect every day. You get to pull cards for free. There's literally nothing you can buy, so everyone's on the same playing field. And every card has a grade and a rarity, which gives it a value. Then you can use that value to sell it if you want to get more gold, or trade with other people, and then you can use that gold to buy from the rolling shop, or use the gold to trade with other people. There's so much you can do over there, along with a great community that we already have that's so active and loves to talk and chat, even all things D&D outside of Satchmon. So if that sounds interesting to you and you did manage to find that promo code somewhere in this video, head over to the Discord now. You can find the link below and use the /promo command to input that code and get yourself some gold now to hopefully buy some more Satchmon cards. But that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate every single one of you. I love you guys. I love this community, and I will see you in the next video.